just weave those in. It doesn't have to be everyone, but you know, a couple. That's it. Maybe about there. That's it. Maybe about there. That's it. Maybe about there. All the digging that's been going on around here. Yeah, they've been all up under that, haven't they? You've been digging anywhere else? Can't see anywhere. Side one. Right. I'm gonna do it. What? Side one. Check on these little peas that are going along here. Microphone testing 1 2 3. Microphone testing 1 2 3. All a tad melancholy on plot 37 this morning. Actually, it's not this morning, it's this afternoon. Yeah, so do you remember me saying last week that Ruby had been really under the weather? So just sorry, going back. Ruby had been really not looking too hot. She was really lethargic and just not happy, just really clearly not happy. She's such a like in your face chicken, and she just wasn't doing what she was supposed to be doing. But we gave her a bit of cowpole. A guy who used to have chickens up here used to give his ill chickens cowpole. Anyway, she recovered day by day. She was still drinking a lot of water. She was fine, and she was looking really, really perky. And then about 3-4 days after she had been unwell, Florence Dumbo, looked really unhappy, and she was sitting under the house. And what we thought the problem was is she was trying to lay an egg, because she was the only one of the girlies still laying. Val and Margot have gone broody, so they're inside and they're defending inside. So that poor old Flo couldn't get in to lay an egg. That's what we thought was happening. So we kicked the other two girls out, put Florence in, left her in there to do what she needed to do. Did the rest of our day pottering through here, let the rest of the girls in at the end of the day, and went home quite happily. Next morning, Mum came up, as she does, to open the greenhouse and, you know, make sure the girlies would get the food and water and everything. And Florence was no longer with us. So she obviously wasn't just trying to lay an egg. She wasn't very well. So whatever happened, Florence and Ruby both had something not very nice. The other two girls are absolutely fine. We've been checking on them quite religiously. They seem fine. But 1 minute she was running around absolutely fine. Like that morning, we were up here for the full day that day. The whole of the morning she was out and about doing what she needed to do. And it was just right at the end of the day when she just started to look a bit sad. Yeah, a bit sad. And then hunkered down. If you keep chickens or you know chickens, you'll know what I mean. They just kind of, they hunker a bit. She went really, really quickly. I mean, they're such tiny chickens, the bantams. So the long and the short of it is we're down to 3 girlies. Ruby made a full recovery. other two girls seem fine. Don't know what it was. Actually, on a slightly brighter note, something very exciting has happened at home, which I will show you later on. But it meant that I had to do a little bit of ferrying earlier this week. Morning, chaps. We are on a mission this morning. I've got to get these guys over there without tipping them out of their little pots. So this is part of the potted up tomatoes. It's the very sad chilies. If you've been watching Potty Mouth, you'll know what I mean about that. It's aubergines, it's the courgettes, melons, cucumbers, all of that kind of stuff. And they're being migrated from home up here. So now we've got nothing at home at all. Very exciting. You can see the weather's also taken a bit of a turn. I'm back in woolly jumper mode. Yesterday evening I was down by the river, like sweltering in a vest top, and now we're chilly again. We are going to attempt to make some progress on the polytunnel floor. Sorry to start the vlog off with sad news. I'm hoping you can see this. But yeah, the roots, now we've exposed them, they've all started sprouting, little buggers. So I'm just going to pull as much of this out as possible. I'm going to try not to cut the ends, because if you slice them cleanly, they tend to sprout from that point. So then you get a whole like bundle of new growth. So I'm just going to try and rip them out, or use a really jaggedy saw to cut the ends. But we're going to try and get as much of this out as we can, with the full understanding that it's just going to grow straight back. But if we get as much out as we can at the moment, then level it off, because obviously we can't level it off with all this root in here. So we'll get as much out as we can, level it off, and then think about getting the mesh down.
I shall get the fork.
Right, I'm going to chuck all the root on this bed here.
Okay, and then
spidery, but workable. I reckon we should get a good bottom layer out of that.
Okay. Always go and get some more after.
Yeah.
This is the one we don't like too, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're going to rake, then we'll stomp.
Rake and stomp, rake and stomp. So we're using the same rake and stomp method of levelling this ground as we did in the greenhouse. In the greenhouse we were starting with a much more level floor to begin with. This one, because it had all the rat holes and now we've dug all the roots out of it and things, we're starting with a much more uneven base. But we also don't need to get this as flat. Because most of it's going to be covered underneath the bed, it just needs to be flat enough that the weed-proof matting and the mesh and the plastic and whatever else we're going to be putting down will sit flat on it and not be kind of sticking up all over the show. Because we haven't moved the actual timber base of the polytunnel itself, we know that that's already flat, because I worked that out when we were, building the thing. So none of that's moved, it's just this internal section that we're sorting out. 5 rounds of rake and stomp seems to have sorted this out a lot flatter than I thought it was going to. I thought it was going to be a much worse job than it was. And now to put some flooring down. We're going with the woven weed-proof matting on the bottom layer. Part of the reason for that is we've actually got it. This is the same roll that I used the last time we were doing the base of this polytunnel. Some of the considerations we've got here is we don't want a waterproof layer at the bottom, because when we're watering in the polytunnel it will sit, and also it means that the ground underneath gets very, very dry, and then it's more tempting for the rats to come underneath. So this bottom layer is a permeable weed-proof matting. There's 2 types of weed-proof matting that are like the general ones that you get. One of them is like a felt, which doesn't shred, and then there's this one, which is it's like woven plastic. And if you catch the edges, it shreds and it's an absolute nightmare. If you're using it for something like growing strawberries through, you can use a burn hole, so because it's plastic, if you singe the edges, it kind of seals them off, but we're not going to do that, we're just using scissors. The reason that I'm using the woven one on the bottom is because we're going to have the wire mesh over the top of this. And that will protect it, essentially, away from, I'm not going to be putting my fork through it, and hooking a little bit of the plastic string up and then you get it all in the soil. So I think this is probably the easiest one to have on the base layer. So I said earlier that we're not going to be able to stop the roots growing underneath here, but I'm hoping by putting this woven matting underneath and then the mesh, the wire mesh on top of that, what is going to stop is the roots coming up through the wire mesh, because that's what I was worried about. If I just put mesh down to stop the rats, I'd be quite successful at that, except that the roots themselves would be able to grow up through the mesh, and then when I'm inside pulling the roots out, I'd be pulling up the mesh and then making more holes, and then the rats could get in. So I'm hoping this is going to just seal the whole thing off. We will be putting more weed-proof matting over the top of the wire mesh at the end, so it's going to be a 3-layer affair. Hopefully, chaps, hopefully that will let the water through, but no rats and no trees. This isn't extending past the edge. Like I say, we're going to staple it to the base. The mesh I will extend slightly further out, because the rats like to dig at the very perimeter of the poly and then go straight underneath. So I've got a kind of, it won't be very wide, maybe a foot of mesh going around the outside like a little skirt. Hopefully that will stop them. There's a lot of hopefullys going on here, I do understand that, but you can only do what you can do. Stage 1 complete. We are making progress. The next thing that needs to go down is the wire mesh, which is quite a fine wire mesh. It should stop the rats, no problem. I forgot to bring the tin snips up with me today, so that job is being delayed slightly. Plus, we're a bit fed up of lifting those edges now, so it's probably a good time to call it a day. So as you saw, I was shuffling all the tomato plants up here earlier this week to make space at home for excitement. Yet to be revealed, I'm sure you can guess. But I sort of started potting some of them on at home. So about half of them are in bigger pots. The rest of them are still in those cell trays. And I need to get them all out of the cell trays, which is also a really good opportunity to do a bit of a stock take of how many of each tomato I've got come up. I sowed either 2 or 4 of each of the varieties. 4 of the ones mainly that are blight resistant that are going to go outside because we've got more space outside. The rest of them I sowed 2. And I think a lot of them, 2 have come up. So yeah, I'm going to go and set myself up somewhere. The sun has come out, hence the jumper coming off and me sweltering. And I'm going to do some potting up. Okay, I've moved my table up into the sunshine because down that end where the actual potting bench is now completely in the shade. It's beautiful. So yeah, got our little table up here. Now, there are a lot of tomatoes here, way more than I need, but I think I'm going to save all of them, pot them all up, because somebody will always be happy to take them. Yeah, and be interested to see if there's any that I don't have any of. Not seeing any at the moment. I know that my garnet didn't come up, but Johanna just kicked thin air there, and I'm so used to Hallie being on the floor and being like, oh, kick the cat, kick the cat. Yeah, panic stations. There's nothing there. Yeah, I know that my garnet didn't come up because I was using old seed, but Johanna has got 2 garnet plants for me, so I don't have to worry about those. Everything else, we'll just see what we got. Okay, the final list of the tomatoes for 2024. We've got 4 Atomic Fusion, which is the improved Brad's Atomic Grape, very exciting. Serinda's Curry, which is the sour one for cooking. No garnet, they're coming from Johanna, but they are a very small, dark, sweet cherry. We've got a Jet Setter, or 3 Jet Setter tomatoes, which will be growing outside because they aren't listed as blight resistant, but they seem to do very well against the blight last year. Nice big fat red tomato. Same with Oregon Spring, they'll be growing back the garden at home. We've got 1 Black Krim, which is also known as Black Russian, great big fat cooking tomato. More that I've never grown before, we've got Dark Galaxy and Beauty King.
I've got 6 burlesque plants, which are all blight resistant, so they'll be growing outside in the beds. We have got 2 sun golds, the very, very sweet yellow cherry, 2 bliss, 3 black strawberry, 2 green doctors, which are the green when ripe cherry tomato. Grew them last year, they were delicious. We have prairie fire, sart relays, black moon, rebel starfighter prime, Japanese black trofeli, my fave, as you know, the really heavy, beautiful coin purse shaped one. We have Najina, which is another blight resistant, mortgage lifter, apparently massive, 2 goat bags, 3 pork chops, which are the big fat yellow ones from last year, which I loved, 4 crocchini, another blight resistant chap, 2 black beauty, 1 sergeant pepper, and 1 Alice's dream. I'll take some side shoot cuttings of the Alice's dream as soon as it's big enough, because that was, I think that was the absolute winner, the overall winner of the flavour test last year from what I grew, and I've got quite a few people who want them. Unfortunately only 1 germinated, but I think, if I remember correctly, the reason only 1 germinated is because I only had 1 seed left. Stupidly didn't save any, because I thought I had a packet of them at home. But anyway, yeah, so I'll be taking side cuttings of that. And that, chaps, are the tomatoes for this year. Now, I can fit 17 in the polytunnel. There's a lot more than 17 here. And I can fit maybe 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, maybe 16 in the bed that have currently got the broad beans in. That's where the tomato frame is. So yeah, fingers crossed we are in for a seriously fine tomato season. Hey there, Rube? I know. She's not here, love. Margot and Val are being loopy in the house, aren't they? They've gone broody, silly girlies. I know, sausage. No flow. No flow, sweetheart, I know.
Come on, girl. Have you got everything out? Do you need jumpers and things? No, I've got my clothes on. Okay. Got the keys? Yep. Keys. Okay. Okay. Let's go. Right. Oh. Not expected to rain tonight, is it?
Okay, chaps, so the big news, the really exciting news. So, I don't know if you remember back in the mists of time when things went disastrously wrong with the kitchen floor. So, I used to do quite a lot of cooking videos. I wouldn't say quite a lot, but there was often segments of cooking in with the general vlogs, and then I started making like separate cooking videos pretty much every week, I think it was, for a little while. And then one day I stepped backwards from the stove and my floor just collapsed. My foot went straight through the tiles, just into a pit underneath. Oh, God. Well, that started a process of trying to get an insurance claim for something which just the job just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually, before they actually came to take the floor away, the whole thing had sunk. So we were walking in at one end at this height, and then the whole lot was just disappearing into this kind of, oh, it was dreadful. It was dreadful. And obviously, I don't know if you remember what my stove looked like, but it's huge, like a tank. And we're just thinking, oh my goodness, it's just going to fall into the ground. So that was, oh my God, how long ago must have that been? 19 months ago, maybe 20 months ago, I think they said, because it was 18 months when they came and did the last assessment. So yeah, it must be 20 months ago. And do you remember me saying like, oh, I hope they're going to have had it sorted by Christmas? This was like in October 2022. Well, I haven't been able to do any filming in the kitchen because they keep coming in and ripping more bits of it out. And we just had this like OSB board in the kitchen. So every time you walk, the whole thing bounces. The table bounces, everything falls off the tables. It's just like when the washing machine was going, the whole kitchen was like... Anyway, I'm just rambling on now, just giving you the backstory of how exciting this is. Well, we have decamped the kitchen into the sitting room. That's where I am now. Let me just unclip you and I can show you. So this is sitting room. You can see we've got like the majority of our kitchen in here. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what the kitchen is looking like now. So here we go, chaps. It's quite a jump down. You can see like we had to strip everything out. Obviously, we've kept the things that are up high. Just had nowhere to put them. But yeah, that's where the oven was and all the washing machine and everything in there. They haven't managed to get the sink out yet because we have the most ridiculously enormous sink. The poor guy came in. So the two guys came to do the electricity and the gas and everything to take the stove out initially. And then they were like, oh, some other guy's coming to do a strip out later on. And he'd just been told, you've got to take the kitchen sink out. Well, he wasn't quite aware. Oh, hold on, I've just got to get down out of here. Okay, let me go around there. He wasn't quite aware that it was like a triple size cast iron number. Actually, this is really funny. I'm standing in a hole. So now when we're washing up, because we've still got water attached at the moment, but look how high the sink is. It's like up at my chin. So washing up is like a bit of a full face activity at the moment. But yes, the thing is, the floor has started. The floor has started. So we're all incredibly excited. It's a bit annoying being all decamped into the sitting room. However, I will say we've timed it beautifully with the weather because we do have a barbecue outside. And although we can't come through this side of the house, we've got like a side return that we can go through. So hang on, I just got to climb out of my pit. There we go. Yeah, so soon, chaps. Soon. They're supposed to finish this up in, what do they say, 10 days? They think they're going to be finished. Not the decoration work, but like getting a floor in and everything back to being functional. So, yeah, that, let me just clip you back on to your stand. That, chaps, means we're going to have a functioning kitchen again. It means we can start doing a bit more cooking, which is brilliant. And it's timed really well because we're just coming into season of like picking lots of stuff. So yeah, cooking is back on the menu. Talking of that, I'm going to go outside and start prepping a bit of dinner. So, exciting times?
Yes. Yes, I'm excited about the floor. It's very difficult though. to have a floor that you can actually walk over. It's not that difficult having a barbecue and a toaster in the sitting room.
Well, you should actually take a photograph of me washing up in the sink.
Yeah, you know when I just showed you how tall that sink is on me. Imagine how tall it is on Mum. She's washing up like this, a little nose poking over the top.
Anyway, yes, I'm glad this started.
This, however, little madam, you can imagine if she got in here, we'd never find her again, because underneath there and underneath like this side, it just runs straight under the house. So we are defending, aren't we, Hal? Can you see those little white legs under the chair? Yeah, we're defending, aren't we, Hal? Yeah, bunny rabbit. I know, sugar plum fairy. Yeah, baby girl. So I'm going to crack on here, doing a bit of barbecue. Tomorrow I don't need to cook dinner though, because I'm going out with Johanna. So I will see you then. Slightly shorter video than usual today, chaps. I know, look at that. It's a pint of water. What is this? But it's the morning. So yeah, it's not glass of wine time, so I'm going to be cheersing you with the water. In fact, I will cheers you later on. I'm going out for lunch. Yeah, this has been a bit of a week, this one, chaps. A bit of a week. Yeah, poor Florence. Little Flo. I mean, she was just getting the hang of getting back in, you know, the house. You know, she couldn't jump over that fence. Yeah, she was just starting to get the hang of that. So it was really sad actually. Yeah, but I mean, they're such little chickens, you know, and they go so quick. Didn't even know she was ill. It was that fast. Like, Ruby was clearly unwell, but Florence just like a flash. Plus obviously the floor, which is wildly exciting. But it has meant that this whole week has mainly been taken up with like getting everything out of the kitchen into the sitting room, trying to stop Mum stressing about there not being a kitchen. Yeah, and then the back garden has been full of the floor basically, because a lot of the stuff we want to save. So the guys that keep trying to, they come in, they're ripping it all out and they're trying to take it out the front to like put into these big bags and chop up and take away, and we're like, no, we'll have that one. And then there's like the temporary joist things that they put in there are really nice big 2x4s, and we're like, oh no, we'll have them, thank you very much. So yeah, the whole week has just been, it's been all over the place basically. And relax. I've got a couple of days of visiting to do now. I'm actually going on a day trip with Hannah next week, you know, Ginger Grows, who we did the garden at Hampton Court with last year. So that's very exciting. We're off there this week, and I think I'm going to nip down to Kew because I really want to catch the last of the tulips, and I know they're going over. So I want to nip down there. Yeah. Plus, we've got loads of stuff to plant out. Loads of stuff to sow. The beans are looking really like they want to go out. So much. So much. Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy week, chaps. Right, so a couple of things. Seem to have caused quite a bit of controversy with saying that the Minestrone Lycia isn't the same as Spigarello. From what I've found out, so there's contradictory information out there, and they are very, very similar. But I got in touch with an Italian seed importer. Firstly, I was looking to see if I could get hold of some Minestrone Lycia, to see if I could like to distribute it to you because I love it so much. Spoke to him, and they are not the same. Very, very similar, and Spigarello is a bit of a catch-all term, and it does have curled leaves, but they're not those really tight little corkscrews like the one I was growing is. It's going to taste very, very similar and grow similarly, but it's not exactly the same. But pretty close. And I am still on the lookout for seed. Firstly, I want some more. And also, like, so many people are like, oh, do you have seed for that? Do you have seed for that? And I don't. I really don't. So I'm going to have to get on that one big time. I also, some completely mystery last week, I wrote the description, you know, under the video like you do, you know, when you click on the more bit or read more, I think it says underneath, and I've got all my information under there from the video. So I wrote all that out last week, published the video, off I trotted, feeling like that's accomplished, tick. Then I got a load of messages from people saying, oh, where's the link to the rhubarb cake vlog, and where's the link to this, and where's the link to that? And I was like, I put them underneath. Like, what's going on? Went back, there was nothing there. Somehow it just completely vanished after I'd written it, so there was nothing there, so I apologise. The rhubarb cake is in vlog 53. And I think it's at timestamp 20 minutes and something seconds, if you're interested. But talking of recipes, I am racking up a right old list of recipes that I want to get filmed downstairs in the kitchen when we have the floor. So yeah, it's all coming together nicely. It is coming together nicely. The chard lasagna, another thing that I got a load of questions about. I've never filmed a chard lasagna, but I do have the full recipe on my blog on the website, so I'll put that link underneath. There's also a link to the fancy root trainers. They're under there. Something that I found actually a difference now that I'm using two different types of root trainer is the black metal ones. That's very fancy. No, the black plastic ones, I'm finding they're getting a lot more waterlogged at the bottom than the new ones. It's like it's like the soil isn't carrying up, and I don't know whether it's something that I've done, because it's not something that I've noticed necessarily before, but I think maybe it's because I've now got the comparison between the two. They're not, yeah, I'm pretty enamoured of the new ones, to be honest, and they're only like 12 quid, whereas those black plastic ones, you can pay 25 quid for them. So yeah, there's a link for them underneath as well. They're from Ian at Grown Local. I'm sure they are available at other retailers, but that's the best spot for me. But yeah, I mean, we did make progress this week. I mean, it feels like just a rushed week where we haven't really got anything done, to be honest. But potting those tomatoes up was a big thing. So you might have seen that I potted quite a lot of them up really, really small. Some of them had only just begun to get their true leaves, which is when I would normally pot them up. But I was finding, again, another watering issue, I was finding it quite difficult to keep those plastic trays well watered. When I had them here, I don't have those big wide plastic watering trays that I've got in the greenhouse because we just don't have space for them here. So I had the individual little trays that you put those cell trays in. And what was happening is I bought those cell trays really super cheap on Amazon, and they had a really wide lip around them, and so what was happening is I was putting them in the seed tray and the ones on the edge weren't touching the bottom, so they weren't getting the same amount of moisture. So I was getting like a patch in the centre where all the tomatoes were growing really strong. All the ones around the edge were really suffering. So, and then obviously we've also got a space issue up at the allotment in terms of putting those big trays out. So I just thought, get them all potted up. It also means that I'm able to see how many I've got to give away, which is a lot. But I've got so many people on the site who are looking for blight resistant varieties, because every year the blight comes blowing in and it makes growing tomatoes outside incredibly difficult because it's airborne and you're in a spot where so many people are growing tomatoes, like in greenhouses but also outside. The moment it comes through, gets potatoes and tomatoes, just spreads across the whole site and everybody's crop goes, which, as you can imagine, not much fun. And there's quite a few people on our plot, understandably, as I imagine there is on most allotment sites, who don't have any kind of covered growing area. They don't have a greenhouse or a polytunnel. So their only chance is to grow them outside. And there's a couple of real bog standard blight resistant varieties, but as I said, I think Shirley's one of them. From all reports, Shirley has absolutely no taste whatsoever, grows brilliantly. But what's the point if it doesn't taste of anything? So I've got a whole load, which I'll talk about next week, because I'm going to be sorting out which plants are actually going to be going where, because we've got 3 growing sites this year. As I said before, we've got inside the polytunnel, we've got growing outdoors just in beds at the allotment, and we're also going to grow some here in the back garden. So yeah, I'm going to be juggling them all around, and I've got way too many tomatoes to fill that patch. So there's going to be some tomato sifting. Also had fantastic germination with the tray of courgettes, cucumbers and melons that I started off last week. I think there's like one hasn't germinated, which means we are inundated with courgettes and cucumbers and things. Cucumbers are going to be growing in the polytunnel and the greenhouse this year. I'm going to see which is best. I've never grown them in the polytunnel before, so that'll be quite exciting. I've also got to pot up the sweet potatoes. My God, there's so much to do, and I didn't do barely anything this week. However, having made a start on the polytunnel floor is excellent, because I basically need that to be finished by the end of May. Those tomatoes, the moment I've potted them up, you know, I said I potted some up like a week before. They're like this big already, so they're going to need to go in there soon. So I better get a wiggle on with that polytunnel. Yes. Big thing for next week. We've already bought the mesh. We've already bought the plastic to go out over the outside. It's just actually getting down and doing it. Right, chaps. I have got to go. The guys are back here. The reason I'm up so early, the guys are back here this morning ripping out the sink and all that kind of stuff. So I've got to go and have a bit of a nose what's going on down there. Right. I'll see you next week, chaps. Cheers. Apologies for the water. Cheers regardless. Cheers to my patrons. As always, incredible people who support this channel and keep it going. And cheers to everybody who watches every single week. It's amazing. Next week, I promise, less sad and more action. Cheers, chaps.